Okay. Good morning, Misty.
Good morning.
You sound so thrilled.
I'm tired.
What are you eating?
Nuts.
Oh.
The energy snack.
Oh, yum.
That's a better view. So today, like I said, we're gonna do Carly's hair. We're gonna do an A-line and give her some layers.
All right.
If I had color or anything, we would just fix her color too, but, yeah. So, with an A-line, there's a couple of questions that you want to ask straight at the beginning. First off, can you guess what two of those questions would be? Just off the top of your head.
Where would you want it to go?
Right.
How short in the back?
How short in the back and how short in the front. Those are your two main questions. So for Carly, how short are we going in the back?
I don't know, didn't think of that. Oh, it's kind of long, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. We don't have to take it overly short. We don't even have to take it an extreme A-line or anything like that. And so, but those are the two questions. Doesn't matter how extreme for the A-line that we need to find out.
Okay.
Your starting point and your destination. Okay, so starting point, where do you want to go? Because yeah, you're way down here, so you want to do it like to here.
Yeah.
Okay, and then where do you want it to be in your front? We need to go probably shorter because you're very rounded. So I would say we need to take off about a 1/2 inch because you've got a nice arch here. And we need to have it to where it comes right here to take out that arch. So to give it that A-line, we have to go to at least here. Okay? Does that make sense to you?
Yes, it does.
Okay. Easier way to do it is if you have to, is take your comb. So we're gonna take that 1/2 inch off. And there is your little angle, walk it around. So there is your your starting point. It's gonna be right here. And if we don't wanna put too much of an angle into it, I can actually bring it down and have it start here to give it that nice little trim on the side. Because that'll take out any of this breakage right here.
Mm-hmm.
So with her, anybody else, I always split it all the way down the back, over the ears. That way it holds it. The lovely thing about ears, split it all the way back. And make our starting point, which is right here. So there is the first part of our guide. Then what I will usually do, but try not to stand in front of the camera, is make a guide above the ear so it's not a straight line. So I have hair that falls all the way through, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And I grabbed clips. I actually remembered clips today. And clip it up. I usually use Velcro. I'm not gonna do that today. So walk us on this side.
Can you use the Velcro for your hair like this?
Yeah, you can.
I've still never used them.
They are a awesome little tool. So here is my ending point. Okay? Now, easy thing to do when it comes to this is we have one point and we have another point, is take this point and walk it around to the back. See, now we have a straight line, point to point. And cut it off. And then you can just go through any cleanup that you need to do to make sure it's nice and clean. See, now we have a nice little A-line. Then I go through and match up my two sides. And do the same thing on the other side. And usually what I will do is match up her front little pieces straight off to make sure, especially when there's breakage involved, I match them off straight across. So point to point. And trim. See, in school they go through and teach you walk it around like this. No, because you can never really see your destination point. Whereas if you bring your destination point here, it's a beautiful little straight line. And so now you can see by having it all three here, it's nice and straight. Straight as an A-line is gonna be.
Mm-hmm.
So from here, go all the way down. Squish this down so it hugs across the head. And I will go through and clean up anything that is hanging down so that it's nice and neat. Because right now it's not real thick, so your clipper doesn't have to work so hard. Then from here, I do triangle partings. Now here's a question for you, Misty, and I don't know if it's something you're gonna know or not, but what kind of partings do you put in for maximum movement?
I don't ever think about that. I just did the parties.
Okay. Carly, do you know?
Isn't the triangle pieces for like
Yes.
your pie
Yeah.
pieces?
Yes, pie pieces, triangular pieces. And so, because what's gonna happen is your partings, one, should always match your guide,
Okay.
okay? But also, if you're putting diagonal partings in, you're gonna have some movement at the bottom. If you're making partings that just go straight across, it's just gonna,
Oh, okay.
okay, so bring it all the way down. Scissors. And snip, snip. And same with this side. Move her around a little bit so the camera can see what it is I'm doing, instead of just from the side. So again, triangular partings. I think it can be seen. And then triangular partings. I don't like the hair dripping wet. I just like it wet enough to where I can give it a little bit of grip to it.
Mm-hmm.
And then cut that off. Same thing with this side. And what you'll start to notice is the hair in the center is gonna just start disappearing. And so, because of the fact that she's got an A-line already. And so, what happens is when we put in the layers, this part disappears first.
Mm-hmm.
But also what's gonna start happening is it's gonna start going more forward and more forward and more forward with those partings. Okay, so we've got all of that in there now. Now we can just bring down the entire side. Now if she's got really thick hair, you can take it, bring half of it up and clip it and then cut this part.
Mm-hmm.
But Carly doesn't have, she's got baby fine hair. I'm being nice. She has baby fine hair. So we actually don't have to.
I was gonna say she has thick hair, okay.
It's so thick. Come on, Misty.
In our dreams, she's got that thicker hair, okay? So just kind of trim it down. And we're gonna do the same thing to this side. And if for any reason you're sitting here going, oh my gosh, I lost my guide. Your guide is still right here.
No, I usually couldn't do A-lines pretty good. Was that one girl that I did it, she didn't explain her haircut very well. So, other than that, I usually can do pretty good.
And so, well, I do one little thing that most people are sitting here going, oh my gosh, that makes my life so much easier.
Well, you just did it as well, you know what I did, so yeah, that helped.
But yeah, you know, is one, bring these out here, and that way you can go guide to guide. But with the layers, there's a little trick to the layers that people sit there and it's like, duh, didn't even think about that one. And that is for an A-line layer, and you can do a straight bob with A-line layers, you can do long hair with A-line layers.
Mm-hmm.
And so all it means is you're shorter in the back than you are in the front.
Mm-hmm.
And so is you figure in where do they want their layers in the back. For an A-line, usually that's gonna mean it's gonna have very little layers in the front. So, do you want the occipital bone for these layers? Okay, so with thin hair or fine hair, we don't want as much layers, okay? Now that doesn't mean we can't go just as high. That just means that we're gonna drop more hair, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So with thick hair, we can go all the way down to the guide.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So with her, so we're gonna go occipital bone. So here is my guide. But what I'm gonna do is I'm going to drop a little bit of that, okay? And what that's gonna do is it's gonna cause me to not cut so much of that hair in the way of the bulk part of it, okay? So what I'm gonna do is drop some of that, see? We've dropped some of it, and we're going to cut this part off in a very, very straight line. So my hand is vertical with her occipital bone, so when I drop it and it dries, she's right at that occipital bone.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and you'll notice, you cannot see through her hair in any way or form because we dropped half of it, okay? So now what I'm gonna do is that same part, kind of parting, but this time I'm not going diagonal, I'm going horizontal, vertical. too early in the morning. Okay, so I'm gonna take half of that original guide. Now here's the fun part, is I'm going to take this straight over that center point, okay, for where I cut it. And how I know I did it correctly is this is gonna be a nice solid line. There's no wispies or anything like, if there's wispies in there, then you need to move it. You need to adjust, it has to be a solid line. Cut it. Same thing, walking all the way around. It'll get to a point where you can basically take this entire center point, bring it to that, make sure that your guide is nice and straight, never wispy, and you can just cut it in one foul blow, depending on how thick their hair is, okay? Keep going around, always with a solid line in the very, very center. What's happening, if you notice, is I'm getting longer because I keep taking it to that same point. Bring all of this around and just clean it up. She now has perfect A-line layers. And then we're gonna do the same thing to the other side. Okay, so all I'm gonna do is I always start out with a little bit, tiny bit. Okay, see, there's my guide, boom, cut it off. Nice and straight, there's my guide, take that off, keep going through, straight to the guide, so that it's never wispy, nice and solid. Always walking it around, cutting off the excess. And she again has these perfect A-line layers. So what I should be able to do, is take this entire piece, take it to the center, have it all nice and neat and stuff, and have it straight at an angle at the occipital. Okay? It's a lot easier to see when there's more hair, but we're not gonna mess with that one. But so now she's at her occipital bone, and the nice thing is this is a nice easy A-line stack. So from here, you want to turn around. It's like, oh, do you want to have that nice little Utah bump in there? And that's where it gets backed up. And so the little bump on the top. And so, because some of them do, and how they do that is they take most of this on the top and kind of bring it back. This kind of comes down. So if that's what they're wanting, you just go through and clean this up. You're not taking off anything. You're not really changing the line of anything. But what you're gonna do by doing that is make it to where you're still keeping a nice clean look for when they go through and back comb it. Okay? And what I do is a nice added bonus for this one is in school they always tell us don't thin over a cowlick. Why?
Because it makes it stick up more.
Yes. So that's exactly right. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually utilize her cowlick right there, okay? To give it that little bump thing. You're getting a bump.
Okay.
We're gonna match your tummy.
That's funny.
And they only have to do this maybe twice a year, okay? So all I'm gonna do, and I'm gonna use my thinning shears to do this, is right at the scalp, very, very tiny little snips. Is snip this up, not enough to thin it out in any way or form, but what I'm doing is making teeny tiny little snips in her hair over her cowlick.
Okay.
The thinner the snips, the more it's not going to affect the look of the hair. That's why I'm doing teeny tiny little ones. And what's gonna happen by doing it at the scalp, she's gonna have a little bit of growth room in there, and she'll be able to back comb it too, because of the fact that it's easier to back comb when there is some layering in there.
Oh, that's awesome thing.
And you just keep right on going, always over the cowlick area, or otherwise known as the curvature of the head, because you can actually do this on the sides too. Never with this cut, because of the fact that we like to have that little bit of a sleek look on the sides. And usually what I will do is make sure that I'm not doing this in the same spot every single time, so that she doesn't get hair missing in the same spots going down like this.
Okay.
But always going through and making sure I can see through the hair. And only at that curvature point. Once the head is is flat again, this doesn't work. Comb the excess hair out. Fluff it up. And we have a Utah bump.
That's cool.
So as it dries, this is what it's gonna start to do. I've just taken 20 minutes out of her getting ready time.
Who gets ready these days?
Well, yeah, and you're gonna have less time to get ready after baby number 7 gets here.
True.
So what do you wanna do with the bangs?
Last time I cut them, I did the straight across. I don't want those here, so maybe just kind of angle them down a little bit.
Okay. Okay, so turn you around. So she has a cowlick here. So with the angled bangs, oh yes, very evident on this cowlick. So we're gonna utilize that cowlick, okay? We're not gonna fight it because we never win. I don't care what we do, we never win. So these bangs go this way, these bangs go this way. She's got a little bit, I'm not sure if it's breakage or framing right here. We're just gonna go through and kind of trim that up, but we're gonna do it at the same time as we do the bangs.
Okay.
So always at a downward angle, okay, straight from forehead down to the chest. Never at an angle going this way, because that's how it's gonna lay.
Yeah.
If we cut it down this way, it's gonna lay this way. It's gonna be soft, it's gonna be pretty. We're gonna take too much hair out if we angle it back. So usually what I will do is just with the tip of my scissors, is just very gently run it down. And that's gonna even clean up any breakage that she has in there. And then with thicker hair, what I will do, see hers is already going back a little bit, but that wasn't from us, that was there already, is I will turn around, and if they've got that real thick like I have, is I'll do another round. Okay? And what that'll do is it'll just make it a little bit softer. Good morning, Berlin.
Good morning.
So on this side, we're just gonna turn around and figure out, again, destination and starting point. Starting point is usually the eyebrows, destination is wherever we want it to be. So we're gonna start with the starting point. Because she has a cowlick, let it go so that we don't cut into that cowlick area. That way, it doesn't end up being too short. So that's the worst thing we could ever do to a person is, it's like, oops, we cut way too much off because of that cowlick.
Mm-hmm. I have one too.
Yeah. They're not fun. So now she's at a downward angle, and now what we're gonna do is meet them. Get rid of these little crunchy ends. So, if she's gonna feather her hair back, Carly usually doesn't do anything to her bangs. So we're gonna make it a little bit easier for her. So it's still gonna be at an angle, but what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pull it back so a lot of that front part will calm down. And I'm at a downward angle, gonna take off about a 1/2 inch. And then we'll point cut it a little bit. And that's gonna put a little teeny bit of layering in there.
Mm-hmm.
It just softens out the look. She can now feather it back.
Mm-hmm.
Voila.
Awesome.
You have an A-line layer. With nice little soft layers in there, little
That
bangs.
needs a new color job.
Yeah, well, we're gonna take care of that part.
It looks like an ombre.